I just wanted to add a couple of things to what I was talking about yesterday with my thoughts on the vote, the election that's coming up. And one of the predominantly the main response I was getting to that, and you've seen it over the years, I've seen it over the years as well, is um, the voting isn't going to change anything. And I mentioned nihilism in the video because I think it's a symptom of what you're looking at, and there's also an element of realism involved in it because it's kind of right and it's wrong in ways. So I think what we're looking at is you're seeing people who are recognizing the damage that the government is doing now, and then they're kind of tracking back and going, well, hang on, they've been actually doing quite a bit of damage successively over the decades. So in retrospect, the vote never really changed anything up until now. Now, there's a possibility that the vote might change something because the landscape is different than it was 5-10 years ago, okay? So it's not the same thing. You can't compare today to the last elections because now you have, on the surface at least, a genuine opposition to the ideology that's being implemented and enacted by the government that are in there now. I include Sinn Féin under that umbrella. So voting might actually change something now. So I reject, on one hand, the idea that voting won't change anything, but I also agree to it in terms of it recognizing that voting cannot be the only thing that we are pinning our hopes on for change. That I accept, okay? And I just have, again, a few notes in front of me or save me from rambling away on things and forgetting some things. But so, given what we have an amount of what we'll call nationalist candidates who are running. So let's say all of them get in, okay? Then what we have is a televised voice, because you're going to have voices in the Dáil that are actually speaking for Irish people and for the general concern of the land coming from the hearts and minds of the people, okay? So that's positive. However, let's say none of them get in, or only a couple of them get in. I still see there's positive elements in that. But where are we then? Then we can firmly stand and say voting has not made a difference in terms of how I want this country to be run now. So now we need to move past that and develop an alternative way of getting this place back on track, whatever that comes to be, okay? So there's still a positive to be taken out of that as well. It's like we have a checklist of things that we're looking at that we've always given over our responsibility to. So you have the Gardaí, you have the justice system, the court systems, you have the politicians, you have NGOs, you have doctors, all that kind of stuff. And over the years, what you're after seeing is these things having a line drawn through them going, not helpful, not helpful, not helpful. And the list is getting so small now that we're at voting and politics and the Gardaí. They're kind of highlighted at the moment of things that we always seemed to believe had our best interest at heart and were there to make sure that no harm came our way. A lot of the country are starting to realise, actually, hang on, these people don't seem to be doing the job that they've been given the role to do. And that can lead to people feeling helpless and hopeless and nihilistic. What's the point of doing anything if everything I ever believed in turns out to be corrupt anyway? Great starting point, but you need to move past that. You can't stay there. You know, misery loves company. Like, and if you stay in that kind of circling of depression, you know, a metaphysical depression, what's the point of it? You know, nothing matters. Nothing I do has any sway in the world, so therefore I give up. Okay, eat on that for a while and then spit the taste out and move on, okay? So, yes, outside of the political landscape, what are we actually looking at in this country? Voting won't change everything, obviously, and nor should we expect it to. Because I think part of the reason why we're in such a quagmire at the moment, we're in a ditch, drowning on ditch water. You know, that's what's going on here. So part of the reason for that is because we denied the responsibility all of us have as individuals to maintain and to forward, to develop, enhance the community and the culture that we've been given for a short period of time. We were granted the custodianship of it, and we gave all that responsibility over to other people, okay? And that's the crux of why we're here, why we are where we are now, okay? So yes, we shouldn't pin all our hopes on politicians because that's what's landed us here. Let's withdraw that, and I think people are recognizing that, and there's a movement following that. There's a step to be taken after that. Don't just land on voting doesn't work, therefore rip up everything, throw it out, and whatever happens, happens. You don't have to stay there. You can move past that. Recognize that actually the vote, in order for me to see and affect the change that I would like to see in this country, it's not enough for me to give a vote to one person. Grand. So what else do you need to do? That's the next part. That's the ladder out of denialism, okay? So what other problems are we looking at in society? We have our education system, and we have one of the highest rates of people with third level qualifications, degrees in the world, okay? But I would suggest that if you're not learning a real trade or a craft in college, chances are you're being indoctrinated into some postmodern, intersectional, anti-white worldview, and that tends to be what you experience when you talk to people that are after leaving college, when you're in college, listening to the lecturers. They're almost explicit with it, but not much so, okay? And there's very rarely any sort of conservative or Roger Scruton kind of a thing spoke about in college, so you never, it's unbalanced, okay? You're also in there with the view that I'm a little bit cool because I have a college degree and those who came before didn't have one, therefore look where I am. That needs to go as well, because we're churning out generations of people who've been made to feel like having a degree, any kind of degree, makes them so much smarter and more informed than their parents. And they may well be on certain subjects, but if you ask them in a working capacity to fulfill a role that hasn't been explicitly spoken to them, they tend not to know what to do. And I think a lot of people are seeing this in the next generation of people that are coming and working. They're lost. I will give one example. I was speaking to a college student recently, and she was involved in a degree in the caring profession, okay, caring capacity kind of a thing. And we were speaking about wanting to reduce, some parties or people speaking about wanting to reduce the age of votes to 16. And this girl was all about it, and she said that young people have a voice too. Yeah, of course. And that they should be heard. And I said, okay, but if we are to reduce the age to the voting age to that of a child under 18, are we still considering the 16-year-old a child? In which case, do adults want to be dictated to and governed by children if their vote is to be the dominant one? Or are we now calling a 16-year-old a child? In which case, I asked her, would you be okay with a 40-year-old now engaging in a relationship with a 16-year-old? She said no. I said, okay, but those are the gates that you're opening with this sort of thinking, okay? She then went on to say that, okay, maybe not that, but what we should do is means test, effectively, older people, and that at a certain point of age, they're just no longer able to vote. Okay, why? And her argument was that older people tend to have a worldview that is rejected by the younger people. So because there tends to be more older people than there is younger people, the older people's view or the younger people's view doesn't get to be accepted generally or voted in generally. And I said, so you'd like to take the vote off of older people because you don't agree with the way they see the world? And she said, yeah. And if not, then dilute it. So maybe an old person's vote is worth half of what a young person's vote is. And I said, what you're promoting there is total tyranny. It's a dictatorship, essentially, where if one segment of the population doesn't agree with what the current popular narrative is, or the one that's pushed the most, then just take their votes off them, so then this few can get in and then everyone's happy except the people that you've just silenced. And she had no answer to that. And I use that example because that's what the colleges are churning out. I would imagine this girl did not have to have this view prior to college. But they're educated into this view, so they think it's the moral view. It's certainly not, because all roads lead from the college campus straight to tyrannical dictatorships, essentially, because that's the nature of them. Okay, it doesn't mean that the institutions themselves are innately faulty. It's just the people in there tend to be of a certain political persuasion and very hard on it too, and they are using their positions to essentially indoctrinate the minds of generations of young Irish people, and you can see that now, and it's not a healthy one. It's not good. So that's that. That's third level education, primary education. Many of the current crop of teachers have been educated to see the world a particular way and believe that they came to those thoughts by themselves. I'll give another example. Someone that I knew who was doing their college training, or they were earning their degree in Mary I in Limerick. She said that they were doing a project on family. You just have to do it on family, fill in the gaps yourself. And she done hers on Irish family, just mum, dad, son, whatever, daughter. And she was told that she would be docked marks if she didn't include some reference to a minority. So she needed to include a mother-mother relationship and family, or she would be docked marks. That's just an example of the previous problem I was talking about. Okay. Also in primary education, you can see I get butchered this now, the SPHC, is it? I think like the social kind of learning for the kids that's coming out. You've seen the curriculum be released last year, and some of the books on it, I wouldn't be able to speak about what's going on in some of these books that are designated towards children in primary school, because the vulgarity in it would be considered worthy of censorship. I would have to make this video for over 18s only. But this government and the NGOs, the people that are involved all the way up and down the pyramid, okay, they're okay in this, and they're saying, yeah, I'll do that. Give me that book. I'll go in and read that, kids. Go and look it up yourselves. Okay? I won't say no. I'll say no more about it. I think people are well knowledgeable about it anyway, but that's problems with the primary education. So where are we now? Yeah, so healthcare system. Ireland is ranked 7th in the countries with the highest cancer rate per 100,000 people. We are sold the idea of progress, and it comes from, I suppose, the Darwinian evolution perspective, that all things started off as kind of senseless, just a mess, and then over years it kind of streamlines itself into more of an effective mechanism for coping with the world around it. It purifies itself, I suppose. Okay. So intrinsic in that worldview is that the movement forward in time, however you want to explain that to people, but the movement forward in time runs parallel to, or is synonymous with, things getting better and being better. So we assume that because you hear it as well, we're in the year 2024, therefore things should be not like they were 10 years ago, they should be X, meaning better. So we assume that because time rolls on, things get better and better and better and better. But the disease levels in Ireland, not just cancer, but you can look them up, Ireland's rankings in terms of physical diseases. We're a very, very, very poor country in that regard. We're dying on our feet, essentially. So the healthcare system, there's people dying in trolleys, there's bodies going into rigor mortis before they're even seen and noticed to been after dying, which is ridiculous. There's a young girl died in a trolley in the hospital in Limerick. And if you want to throw in any stories from other hospitals local to you around, please do. It's all relevant and it's all useful stuff. So in terms of depression, so it's from an Irish Times article. A young 2023, I think. Yeah, young Irish women are the most depressed and lonely in Europe. But we're sold the idea that we have equality now, and therefore equality leads to happiness and positive well-being in your life. Doesn't seem to be the case for the younger generation. Why not? That's a massive problem. That's a problem that just voting for someone doesn't fix. So rates of antidepressants being prescribed to 15-year-olds from the years 2012 to 2022 in nearly every country, I think, or county, sorry, apart from Clare, the rates are just climbing. So you have 15, 16, 17, you have teenagers, you have kids and young adults on these antidepressants for years and years and years. And some of the side effects, which you're rarely told about, but you can pull them out and read, you can look at the pamphlet of these antidepressants, is a sort of dissociative state where you don't really feel like you're in your body and you are yourself. Homicidal tendencies, murderous thoughts essentially, and suicidal ideation if you didn't have it previously. And if you did, it might compound the problem. So these things are blunting the emotional capacity of young people. And if you can't feel, if your feelings of the world are blunted in some way, that's nearly a definition of depression when they're totally flattened, you know. So if you have these tablets that seem to have this sort of dissociating effect on people, then you're not moving towards a positive outcome. There's also been, I won't get into that here, but there was also, I think it was a meta-analysis of all of the previous, or not all of them, but a lot of previous scientific journals and articles about the serotonin factor with depression. Now you take these antidepressants and they tend to boost your serotonin, and then that alleviates the depressive states and the depressive symptoms. It turns out that there's very, very, very small, nearly non-existent evidence of that being the case. So the case for antidepressants and how they're sold to you as working turns out not to be very well backed in terms of solid evidence for it. Make it out what you will. So what else have we got a problem with? The legal system. We have Enoch Burke, regardless of your view on him and his family. It's irrelevant. Your personal views on people or things are irrelevant. What we're looking at here is what is right and wrong, okay? Now how you feel about it. That's another conversation, and that's relevant to things. But what you're looking at is a man who essentially declined to forego his values and his worldview for the sake of maintaining his job and appeasing other people who just had a different view of things than he did. He was then ordered, I suppose, by a judge to stay away from the school of which he was suspended from, which should be the argument that's being had in court. What was he suspended from his job for? Because if the suspension wasn't legitimate, then any succeeding court cases are nearly null and void. From my perspective, anyway, I think that is, if that's not the way it is, it's the way it should be. So yeah, we've Enoch Burke, who's been in jail for nearly the guts of a year now, and then you have a Judge Martin Nolan who is handing out the most lenient sentences, if you want to call a suspended sentence a sentence, the most lenient sentences for the most grievous of crimes involving children and young people. We leave it at that. So what's going on there? What is going on there? Can you fix that with a vote? Do you have to go and evaluate all these judges and their sentences? And in which case, if you find that they are overly lenient and predisposed to giving people lighter sentences for certain crimes, then why? If you took that seriously, do you rout out these judges and barristers and whoever else is involved in it? In which case, how deep do you know that? You don't know how deep that goes. You could end up gutting the whole judicial system in Ireland. Then what? So, yeah, and the court system seems to be in some bad hands, and especially the family court system, where you're not even allowed to make a recording of what's going on in there. So you can get absolutely railroaded in there, and you've no evidence of that. That's not good enough. And effectively, whether we like it or not, you can hide behind all the letters and all the legalese terms and the roles and different professions, but in this country, money buys justice, and that needs to be destroyed. It should not be the case that if you want to take on a state body, that you need millions to back yourself. Otherwise, they will string it out and drag it along until they just bankrupt you and you give in for that reason. You should absolutely be able to common sensely go and stand for yourself if you wish. I think the laws in a land should be simplified to the point where anybody will be able to represent themselves. If not, then it's overcomplicated nearly by intention. And it shouldn't cost you a life's earnings to be able to make a complaint or to stand against the state body. I think that's not helpful, and that disillusions people, because it leads to helplessness. It's like, well, look, what's the point anyway? None of these people ever get charged. So I don't know, I don't understand the law, I can't stand for myself, therefore I'm not paying over blah 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 to a barrister, so I just leave it and accept it. It's not healthy, it's not good. So we have political policing, which is a massive issue. So let's say we all get loads of nationalists in there. What do they do with the issue of the Gardaí? You have a lot of Gardaí that are after leaving. We'll talk about them in a second. But those that are after staying appear to be more than happy to carry out violence against the people that they're there to assure the peace of. Okay, so they're to serve the people, but they're more than willing to take out the batons and pepper spray and batter people and break the law and step all over those people's constitutional rights, okay? The law of the land that they're sworn to uphold. So what do you do with that? Do you try and retrain them, re-educate them? How successful will that be? Do you get in and investigate all of them? Because if they're doing this now on camera, what has their behaviour been like all the way up? Okay. Do you get rid of all of them? Because they've demonstrated that they don't care about the constitutional rights of the Irish people, in which case they're incapable of doing the job they're signed up to do. Then what? Do you charge these people retrospectively for these crimes? Do you charge them with treason? How many of them? If you don't have a court system that we're after gutting, are we then looking at some sort of military tribunal? Do the military then step in there? What's the story with that if you're dealing with treason on the land? So massive, massive holes are waiting to be shown and then plugged with something healthier. Okay? Do you bring back the guards that are after leaving? Do you speak to them? Why did you leave? What was the real reason? It was about rosters, was it? You know, what's the real reason as to why you left? And who made it that way? What can you tell me about the way the guards are run? That conversation has to happen. But either way, you could be left without a judicial system and you could be left without Gardaí. So these are huge, huge, huge problems that we all need to get involved in. It's not just a case of going, actually, look, your man down there loves the Irish flag and he's been talking good stuff for a few years now and he'll fix it. Can't. Needs everyone. So, yeah, with weakened Gardaí or no Gardaí at all, chaos could arise, because regardless of what your views are on the guards, knowing that they're there and there's some system of justice and there's some system of upholding the law involved and embodied in the Gardaí in Ireland, it's enough of a deterrent for people to not let the wild out, you know. But if you're thinking that these people are gone, you don't know what that'll bring out of people, and I don't think people want that. I don't think people are ready for that kind of living. So what do we do with that? We then, and look, all of that then is compounded by the demographic problem, the fertility rate in Ireland. Irish people are not having enough babies to assure that you'll have the same number of Irish people from generation to generation, if not more. It's falling. So the general population of Irish people is just steadily declining, while the populations of the immigrants that are after coming here is increasing. So even if we get all the nationalists in now and maintain the demographic status that we have now, next time around they'll be voted out again, because you will have Middle Eastern people, you will have African people who are more disposed to big state, big government, big benefits, preferential treatment from authoritarian government. Whereas I believe what you're looking at with the nationalists is they want a smaller government. Get your hands out of my pockets, kind of a thing, and stay out of my front garden. You know? So if you get them in now and nothing changes on the demographic scale, then they'll just be voted back out again in the next time around. Okay. So we have the fertility rate. That's a problem. That's probably one of the easier ones to fix. You just incentivize Irish families, and unashamedly, absolutely incentivize Irish families. I would also suggest that now I would stop the funneling of taxes into things that do not benefit Irish people, or people that have been here generationally and have worked and this is their home, because we have those people. Okay, there is no need to be purely spiraling into we need 100% Irish people in this country. Grand, but you're not going to get that with any peaceful means. And I would also question someone's aim with that, you know, because we have people here that have been in and out from other countries and that have been part of the culture and society for generations now. You know, does that mean that we should allow for things that make it harder for Irish people to have homes and families in Ireland? No, we should not allow for that. It'd be great if we could build a society that was more inviting to the young Irish people that had to leave. You know, and I think whatever we need to do to get there, I'm not opposed to that. I think that's perfectly fine. So yeah, fertility rate, drug problem, massive. We don't know how deep that goes either. You know, we know that there's been several Gardaí caught over the last year with drugs in their possession, with drugs in their lockers, evidence going missing, judges or guards being mentioned in court cases in the High Court as overseeing potentially the drug running around the country. We need to understand that a lot better. People need to go to jail over that if that shows to be the case. And we need to start helping some of these lost causes out there. Natural resources, we no longer have a total claim on them or any majority bulk of a claim on these things. They're taken from us, they are fed back into the EU, and then we have to buy our natural resources back off them. That needs to end. And then for that to end, what do we need? We need to have a serious discussion with the EU. We're not in a position to be the dominant power in a debate against them. So if it's a case where Ireland needs to leave the EU, do people have the stomach for that? Because they will try and wreck this country before they give up the money and the resources they extract from us. So those are some of the problems that sticking one vote on someone will not fix, but that does not mean that voting cannot have a positive impact on what way we're heading in this country. So whatever way you're going to vote, understand that you absolutely can make a change. You know, it's not a total change and you won't get the world of your dreams the next day after voting, but it's still a positive step because there's layers to this thing. It's not just a political problem, it's a medical problem, it's a educational problem, it's a military problem, it's a justice problem, it is a sociological problem, it's a European problem. Okay, so there's loads and loads and loads of problems. Nearly every layer of our culture is infected with something, and we need to address them as they appear to us. And the next one that's appearing to us is the political one, where there's a vote, there's an opportunity to voice your concern or to voice your opposition to what's going on. You can take it or not. Okay.